The loss of a loved one can leave you feeling depressed, angry, alone, lost. But you don't have to face this journey on your own. Open to Hope is a free community for anyone who has experienced loss. Find support. Find help. Find hope. Give grief a voice at opentohope.com.
Welcome to the Open to Hope show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my co-host and daughter,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
This show is brought to you by the Open to Hope Foundation in partnership with the Compassionate Friends. Well, Heidi, we have a very moving and important show today. You're a New Yorker,
Yep.
and you're going to be introducing us to some of the people who are involved with Families for Safe Streets. I know that you've met with them, and they have some stories to tell and are doing so much good in the world in the name of their kids.
Absolutely, Mom. And like you said, they are changing laws and they are saving lives every day here in New York. And we can't thank them enough as New Yorkers. And so we're going to meet today with Amy Cohen. Amy is one of the founding members for Families for Safe Streets, and her son Sammy was killed while crossing the street in front of his house. And then we are also going to meet today with Dana Lerner, who is a dear friend of mine. She is a psychotherapist in private practice, and she was influential in passing Cooper's Law, which was a law named after her son, who died when he was run over by a cab on West End Avenue. She is also a founding member for Family for Safe Streets along with Amy, and she is on the advisory board for Cab Riders United. So welcome to our show, Amy and Dana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great to have you on. I have to say that I'm very sad for the reason that we have you on the show today, but we are so happy that you're here and trying to make changes and change people's lives. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your son to start with?
Sure. So Sammy was almost 13 years old. He was in 8th grade, and he was just a bright, kind, gregarious young man, really, growing up in New York. He was very independent, like most, 8th graders are, coming to and from school by himself, and, very close with his sister, had lots of friends. He was a big sports star. He loved soccer and was on a travel soccer team. And he was killed walking across the street going to soccer practice in the park across from where we live.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Now, was he killed by just a regular driver or?
Yeah, driver of a commercial van.
A commercial van. And what happened to the driver?
Well, apparently our story is highly unusual. Most drivers, there are no consequences.
Wow.
In New York City, last year, of all the over 300 people who were killed where alcohol or drugs were not involved, where it wasn't drunk driving, only 2 drivers were held accountable. In Sammy's instance, there were no criminal charges, but I did go and speak at a hearing that they have where it's decided if drivers should lose their driver's license. And I was apparently one of the first people allowed to actually give a statement on the record.
Wow.
Sharing the story about why I thought he should not be allowed to drive. And I really just said, I'm not a lawyer and I don't know what the laws are, but something is wrong. If he accelerated and ran through the intersection when the other cars stopped for him, somebody motioned him in to get the ball. The driver admits he saw the ball and he saw that the other car stopped and he accelerated to get the light before it changed.
Wow.
So he did lose his license for a year or 2 years.
And we're going to show a roll in a minute after we talk to Dana about that is in all the cabs in New York, right, Heidi?
It's unbelievable, and I know that Dana and Amy are fairly newly bereaved, and it's hard to kind of know your impact while you're working, changing all these laws, but it is profoundly changed people in New York. And I didn't even know Amy, but I knew her story, and I knew about Sammy because every time I get into a cab, it seems like this is playing. And I mean, it's made my children more aware of just that people are going to maybe run lights, and even if you're crossing when you're supposed to be, you've got to be extra careful and extra aware. And it's built a lot of awareness, I think, not only with pedestrians but with, I'm hoping, cab drivers and van drivers and everyone out there driving vehicles.
Heidi, maybe you'd like to say something about Cooper before Dana, because he was in your daughter's class.
He was. So I've known Cooper since he was 3 years old. Just totally coincidentally, Samantha, my daughter, and Cooper were in the same class when they were 3, and then went through school together at the same school. And I knew Cooper kind of before I knew Dana. Cooper was just a bigger than life kind of kid. You know, he was just a big personality. He was fun and he had a big personality and he was like the male version of my daughter.
He must have had a big personality.
Yes, he did. He did. And you know, so you know, I met him and he was larger than life. And then I met his mom Dana because we were in the same field. We're both therapists. So yes, and unfortunately, like I said, when he was only 9, he was run over by a cab.
Yeah, Dana, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was January 10th, 2014, and my husband and Cooper were crossing the street with the right-of-way. They had the light, and a cab driver, for reasons that I will never understand, just hit them. He just turned left and hit them. My husband flew through the air and he ran Cooper over. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't drunk. We don't know if he was on drugs because the drugs there's no testing for drugs. Nothing happened to him. He was given a ticket for failure to yield. You know, one of the things that you were saying before about people needing to be more aware, that's true, but people need to understand how many reckless drivers there are out there. Because my husband was doing everything he was supposed to. He was holding Cooper's hand, they were walking across the street with the light, and still this man hit them.
Well, I agree with you, Dana, and we want to believe that if we do everything right at the end of the day, nothing will happen. Like you said, your kids were doing everything right. That wasn't enough. And I think I read when I was, you know, preparing for the show that is this true? Every 30 hours somebody is run over in New York City?
Every 30 hours someone is killed.
That's unbelievable.
Just in New York City. Almost more shocking is 200 people are injured every single day on the streets of New York.
200.
Every single day. We have
That's
an
incredible.
epidemic of traffic violence in New York. And it's not treated like a public health crisis, which is really what is needed.
That I had no idea.
Well, let's take a look at the little clip that's played in many of the cabs in New York today.
On October 8th, 2013, our son Sammy was killed while crossing the street in front of our home. If the driver had been going more slowly, Sammy would probably still be alive today. That's why the citywide speed limit has been lowered to 25 miles per hour on most New York City streets. A driver has more time to react, and if a crash can't be avoided, it's much less likely to be fatal. Please drive like your family lives here.
Now, Heidi was telling me that you are also working to start groups.
Yeah, so we came together only a year and a half ago. And
now, how did you come together? Tell me, how did it all begin?
You know, there had been sort of a small movement before us as part of Transportation Alternatives. They're the large traffic safety organization in New York City. And right after Sammy was killed, 3 weeks later, somehow we heard that there was going to be a hearing at the City Council to lower the speed limit. And Sammy happened to have been in a Hebrew school class with our City Council member. And so I reached out to Brad Lander and I said, is it possible, could we speak as a family? And turns out it was really widely covered by the press, and TA reached out to me and we started working with them, and they helped us convene a group of people who'd formerly been active as well as just new people we had been starting to be in touch with. So our first meeting was a year and a half ago. We had a press conference soon thereafter and immediately fought to lower the speed limit, and it's apparently unheard of in New York State to pass a bill in one legislative session, and in 4 months we were successful.
Now, Dana, how long were you two involved together with this?
We met right after Cooper was killed.
Right after Cooper died. My brother was mutual friends with, I think, a
friend of mine,
of Amy's, and you know, I was, well, basically when I learned that the cab driver that nothing would happen to him, you know, and I basically realized, oh my God, this guy killed my son and he's still driving. Like, it was just beyond belief to me. And so I ended up, my brother took me to, it must have been one of the first meetings of Families for Safe Streets. I was in a fog. I was like, I didn't know what the hell was going on. And people came up to me who were hugging me, and I'm like, why are they hugging me? And now they're some of my best friends. So, you know, we just all have bonded, and
over this, and we help each other because we understand so completely what it's like to have somebody kill your loved one, and you know, traffic violence, as Amy said, and that we now understand that this is an epidemic, and we desperately need people to understand that because nobody knows.
Tell everybody out there what Cooper's Law is.
Cooper's Law is basically when it's enforced, what it's supposed to do is it takes a cab driver, it's just for taxi drivers, and it means that if a taxi driver seriously injures or kills someone, that their license is immediately taken away, and that there is supposed to be an investigation through the TLC. The Taxi and Limousine Committee. They are supposed to do an investigation, and that the license is taken away until an investigation is done. So Cooper's Law passed, and you know, we were very happy, and we had a lot of joy about that, and it was really incredible. Unfortunately, one of the things that I found is that laws get passed, but they don't get enforced.
Right.
So one of the things Families for Safe Streets are working on now is trying to make sure that laws are truly getting enforced. There were actually 2 other laws that I found out about doing some research, named for other children, 2 who were killed and 1 who was seriously injured in New York City, and they were laws that were not being enforced either. So it felt to me like there's this precedent, like, okay, you can have a law for your child, but now we have to make sure that it's enforced, and we need to make sure people know about this. And everybody who I speak to, no matter whether it was right after Cooper died or even now, they just cannot believe that nothing happened to this driver, who was completely at fault. You know, that there was absolutely nothing, there was no criminal charge, and that he's just walked away. Basically, he was given a fine. I mean, it's an insult.
And can still drive?
He'll have his license back in probably, I don't know, a few months.
Wow.
They revoked it for 6 months, and what does that mean, and why 6 months? You know, it makes absolutely no sense. And he was fined, and he's supposed to go to driving school, and he says he doesn't know what happened. So why would you allow a person back on the road who doesn't even know what happened and killed somebody, where there is videotape evidence that shows this? So it's beyond belief.
So we like to say we really think of our mission as trying to change the culture of driving in New York. Everyone around the country probably says driving like a New Yorker, and we all know what that means, right? And we want that to become, you know, from a badge of honor to a badge of shame. But you had asked me also about the support groups, and you know, Dana was alluding to that we really bonded and became a support for one another. And ironically, many of the founding members are social workers or in the helping professions, and you know, we came to realize that a lot of people were coming to that, you know, to us for that kind of support, and we weren't offering it formally, and we've decided to formalize that. And actually, you know, as the newest branch of TA, we'll be adding our first full-time staff member, and are hiring a support services director, and we're launching a variety of services, including a monthly support group. The first one is October 7th. Some legal services, case assistance, a peer support network. We've been in touch with organizations around the world who've done some similar work, including a long-standing group in London, and we're starting to model our services after what they provide.
Unbelievable. So Amy, if people want to find you and they want to be part of this group, and they've had somebody die or injured, right? It's for both.
Well.
Or if they want to donate, or if they want to donate their services or money.
Yeah, where do they go?
So you can find us on Transportation Alternatives website, and also at familiesforsafestreets.org, which is linked to the website.
We've got another roll, and let's watch now, and then let's talk more about this.
I'd like to see New Yorkers relearn how to drive in an urban space. That if you have to use a car here, most of the time you really don't, but if you have to use a car, you have to learn how to do it differently from what has been assumed under a culture of speed. That there has to be a sense of that we're all in this together. This is primarily a pedestrian, public transportation city, and that if you are going to use a vehicle, yes, slowing down is a key. Yielding at intersections is absolutely necessary. And you can't be distracted because there's already too many distractions. So being on your cell phone or not paying attention can't be tolerated anymore. It's just not going to happen, not going to fly. And I think like with any change, our neural circuitry isn't prepared, and it's going to take practice and time. And people are going to feel like going slower with the new 25 miles per hour is too slow. But that's only because we're used to going so much faster or trying to. So it's a matter of practice and getting used to that so that when you go fast, you feel uncomfortable, you feel the difference, and you realize rather than it feeling too slow, you're noticing when it's feeling too fast. So that's how I hope New Yorkers will begin to drive.
A big campaign that we have right now, we just had a big vigil in June, and we've launched a campaign and a petition to change the word from accident to crash, because an accident implies that, oops, it's an act of God and nothing could have been done to prevent it, and a crash really says there are things we can do to save lives. We can redesign our streets, we can change our culture of driving, we can hold reckless drivers accountable. There's a lot we can do to save lives.
I like this, Amy, and Dana texted me, in fact, and said, use the word crash, Heidi. And it was great. I mean, building awareness, and like you said, it's about being involved in a crash and not an accident.
Well, it used to be, for example, with drunk driving, that if you were driving drunk and then it was like, oops, and that culture changed so dramatically over the years with MAD and, other organizations, and we sort of feel like reckless driving is what we're trying to change. We're trying to change that culture for people to understand, again, that, it's not about, it's that pedestrians should have the right of way. People have seemed to have forgotten that, especially in New York City.
Absolutely.
There are other countries and other cities and other countries that there's so much more respect for pedestrians, and we've become aware of the fact that in the United States and in New York that it's just very different.
You're absolutely right. In fact, whenever I travel to a place where the pedestrians have the right of way, I'm like, wow, I forgot people are actually stopping. Because there are so many people that are almost hit just walking around the city, and many more that are, but
Right. People seem to have put up with that. I mean, I think about that a lot. I used to, everybody crosses the street in New York City and you practically get hit, It happens a few times a week probably. And we would just be like, okay, and now I'm like, why is this okay? Why do the cars get to dominate us?
I agree.
Everybody can get to their destination 2 minutes later to save a life.
Exactly.
Sorry. So you got the speed, what was the speed limit?
So it was 30, but probably nobody knew. And we had a campaign to lower it to 20, and ultimately 25 passed. And 25 saved lives. Believe it or not, that 5-mile-an-hour difference allows a driver to have 40 more feet when they press on the brake if somebody's in front of them. It really is a difference between life and death. The 5-mile-an-hour difference means you have going from a 5% chance of survival to a 95% chance of survival.
That's incredible.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Wow.
That's unbelievable. And like you've said, I'm sure a lot of people don't even know what the speed limit is. And now with your campaign,
they know, because
they now know.
We not only changed it, but there's a real public push from the city and the administration. There are ads like the one in the taxicab to promote people to be aware of what the speed limit is and why the change was made.
And it totally blows me away and amazes me. And I've told Dana this before. You are both advocating, and you're getting all this media, and Dana's been in the New York Times. I mean, you've probably been in the New York Times, and you've gotten a lot of press and a lot of publicity. And tell me, for people out there that have a situation where they want to build more awareness, how have you done this? Has it been through joining organizations, or has it just been through writing to their congressmen? Or I mean, you guys are everywhere. It's amazing to me. It really is.
I think some of it is it's hard for people to say no to a parent who's lost a child.
Okay.
But I also think we came together at a unique time. So Mary Beth has been on the Board of Transportation Alternatives since her husband was killed 8 years ago, and she was kind of a lone fighter with a few other people.
And she was the one that was in the video.
But we sort of coalesced around a time when New York City had elected a mayor who had a campaign platform for Vision Zero to bring together some of the changes that they've made in Europe and in Sweden to New York City. So we had already somebody who had said he was supportive, and we just were able to push him harder. So we immediately met with him.
You guys, oh great.
We one of the signs in the clips was Vision Zero starts today. That was his campaign inauguration. I made a sign and we showed up before we were even a group, and then we formed soon thereafter, and we went and we had a roundtable meeting with him with 6 other families. The second or third week of his administration.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think one thing, you really do have to bring a face to these kind of things.
Yes.
It can't be an abstract kind of thing to get people's attention, and you guys have
And
certainly
when
done
you
that.
guys show your children's pictures, I think it's powerful. Like you said, putting a face with Cooper's Law, putting a face with what you were doing with Sammy. I mean, I think that's really, really powerful. And we actually have a picture of Cooper right there. I love that picture, Dana.
That was in Cape Cod.
Yeah. And I know we have one of Sammy too.
We do. So I wanted to ask you, what are your plans for the future, so we know, and what can people do, and do you have kind of some things that you're going to be doing coming up?
So we are going to be having a large event on November 15th as part of the International World Day of Remembrance. We hope to be doing a memorial walk from City Hall to the UN. And again, raising the crash not accident theme. We're going to hope to broadcast messages from people around the country and around the world of their memorial vigils that are being held simultaneously. This is an international event. And really press the theme that these deaths are preventable. These are crashes, not accidents. And as I said earlier, the other really big push that we'll be doing is launching these support services so that others can get what they need. If and when they're ready, they can also join the advocacy effort, but it is really meeting people with what they need immediately. And those are the kinds of calls and requests we were getting, and we weren't able to meet them, so we've decided to formalize that.
We're also going to be, we are going to continue to work on trying to get stricter laws and penalties for reckless drivers, and that's something that we have been working on. We have met with the district attorneys, a number of district attorneys and different offices in the different boroughs, and some have been more supportive than others, but they have told us that there's nothing they can do in order to make these acts criminal, because there has to be 2 things happening. It's called the rule of 2, and it means that if a driver is drinking and texting, then it's considered a criminal, or if they're speeding and texting, but if they're not doing that it's just, then you're just given a traffic ticket. So that's obviously so ridiculous and so ludicrous, and we've spent a lot of time trying to figure out and try to get some more bills that we're supporting to try to get the for there to be consequences. And I think that's one of the other things, if drivers think there's no consequences, there's no reason for them to change their behavior. So the consequences have to be, you have to be held accountable. And as a matter of fact, I think you had told me that I think it's for people who don't pay child support, that the IRS can take away a person's driver's license, but you kill somebody in your car and you're still allowed to drive.
That's amazing.
It
really is.
So we'll be going to, New York State has a part-time legislature, so they only meet in the spring. So we're already putting together, we'll be working, with Transportation Alternatives to, we have a package of bills that we'll be trying to press in Albany, to change the culture. They all are about changing the culture of reckless driving on our streets. So increased accountability, increased enforcement. As part of the new speed limit, we also got a pilot package of 140 speed cameras on New York City streets, but they can only be used during school hours, during the day. There were 3 children killed within a year from Sammy's school, including him. And they were all, I know, a horrible coincidence. One was in his math class. They were all killed, at 6 p.m. when the cameras would be off. Sammy was killed a block from a school. So, you know, we're really looking to fight some of those restrictions and expand the speed camera program, all around the goal of changing the culture of driving, helping people change their behavior.
Well, I know, it just reminds me of a bit of what Candy Leitner did so many years ago to start Mothers Against Drunk Driving. We've had Candy on a few times, and when her daughter was killed, there was nothing. I mean, the guy wasn't even going to go to jail. They said, oh, he'll be let off, even though he'd hit and run. I mean, it was incredible. So what they've done to change the culture is pretty amazing. So I think you guys are going to have a great effort here.
And have already, which is
yes, and have already. Yeah, as Heidi said, I mean, we weren't aware of what was going on, and now we certainly are. So
I think differently about my own safety and et cetera, and I'm more aware of my environment. And like I said, I know my kids do, and I'm always thinking that drivers are. I hope they are. I think they are. They are, because you guys have gotten your message out there loud and clear. I mean, you're yelling it off rooftops.
Well, I think we need the drivers, we still need to find a way to captivate more people, because I think we all see, as I said, there's still people speeding. There's still people making, the left turn is the most dangerous turn.
That's, you have the
most
signal.
people that's a situation where a lot of people are killed in a left turn.
Yes.
And I have to say, again, unfortunately, there's not a day that goes by when I don't see somebody speeding or I don't see somebody turning too fast.
And like you said, why isn't there a point with the walk signal where nobody can turn?
Yeah.
So those are street design changes that the city has the ability to make itself, and we push for those as well.
Yeah.
Now, with your groups, are they going to be led by a therapist? Are they self-help groups, or how does it go?
They're going to be peer-led, but we happen to have 3 people, including Dana, Mary Beth, who was in the clip, and Judy Cutter, oral therapists, and they're going to be the initial facilitators. And then we'll have 2 simultaneous groups, one for people who've had a loss and one for people who've been seriously injured. First Wednesday of every month, and they'll be meeting in Lower Manhattan.
Okay. And now I'm listening to this, and tell me again how I get a hold of you guys.
Familiesforsafestreets.org, and you can also find us as the newest branch of Transportation Alternatives on their website.
Now, what is Transportation Alternatives?
It's a long-standing, I think, 35 or 40-year-old nonprofit that has been fighting for street safety for many years.
Okay.
And they helped found us.
Yeah.
Well,
all right.
Thank you guys so much for everything you're doing to build awareness, to create change in our city. And I know that Sammy and Cooper are your guiding lights. There's no doubt in my mind, and I really appreciate you both being here.
Thank you.